My entitled neighbor parked his favorite car in my driveway and blocked me from taking my son to the doctor, so I got it towed, and he called the police on me. So recently my entitled and rich neighbors bought a huge monster truck and expressed to me that they intended to use my driveway to park it. Of course my answer was no, but they disregarded me and parked it in my driveway anyway. I only noticed in the morning when I needed to take my son to the hospital, and when I told the father to move it, he told me no and to call a cab. Unfortunately for him, I told him that he either moves it or I will get it towed. The father huffed and puffed about it and tried everything to convince me not to do this, but I told him I had no time for this, and either he was getting his butt in the truck now and moving it, or I was going to make the call. He ended up moving his truck with a scowl on his face, even though he could literally see that I was tending to my sick kid. This was a whole new level of entitlement to him. Anyway, while my son was getting checked at the doctor's and I was waiting on test results, I shot off an email to my house owners association about what had just happened. The HOA said that they received my email, made a note of it, and advised my property was my own and I could give or deny access to it as I wish. Thankfully, all tests administered to my son came back negative, and I was told it was a run-of-the-mill virus and he would be fine. The virus just had to run its course. I took him home and called it a day. A few days later in the evening, my oldest started complaining of a sore throat, and I was starting to feel poorly myself. My youngest appeared to be getting better, so I figured that whatever he had that we were getting, so we stayed in all day for the next 2 days. Sunday evening, my oldest son spiked with a very high fever, so I loaded him in the car and off to the ER we went again. The drive was about 30 minutes away, and when we got there we had to wait a total of 6 hours in order to see a doctor because for some reason they deemed it not serious enough to tend to him immediately, even though he was wrapped up in a blanket, coughing, sneezing, and groaning for the duration of the 6 hours. When we did get in, they ran some tests, and after another hour of waiting, all of his tests come back negative. However, the doctor did state that she could hear some wheezing in his lungs, and so she prescribed an inhaler for him to help him, but basically told me the same thing, that he has a run-of-the-mill virus, and to let it run its course. I then had to drive to the only 24-hour pharmacy available to pick up the inhaler, and we did not get back to the house until about 3 a.m. And then this is where the real crap's house starts. Let me set the scene for you. My son is half asleep in the passenger seat and complaining that he just wants to go home. I am exhausted and feeling drained, having coughing fits myself, and I'm just looking forward to going to bed. Well, I round the corner to my house, and what do I see? That same truck sitting in my driveway. I couldn't even pull in because he was blocking me, and I also noticed that he was parked partially on my lawn. I was so mad I could hardly see straight. Without thinking, I Googled and found a 24-hour tow truck service and explained that I had an unauthorized vehicle on my property that I needed towing. The woman said it would be about 30 minutes before they could get a truck there, and I said that was fine. In the meantime, I walked my kid to the house and put him to bed, and then quickly went outside and took a picture from the street to show how much of the driveway he was taking, and that he was also parked on my lawn. I couldn't understand why they would park in my driveway again after I had told them no, and the only thing I could come up with is that since there had been no activity at my house for hours, that my neighbors probably assumed I was in for the night and wouldn't notice the truck in my driveway. This is pure speculation, but it's normal for me to be in for the night, especially after 6 p.m. I don't know if they missed me leaving or just saw me leave, but figured I was home, but it really doesn't matter because I told them they couldn't park on my property. It was about 3:30 a.m. when the tow truck arrived, and I half expected my neighbors to come running, but there wasn't any activity from them, and the driver left with the truck without incident. I went and shot off another email to my house owners association along with pictures and an explanation that I had towed the vehicle, and then went to bed. Well, at 6 a.m. I woke up to someone banging loudly and rapidly on my door. I didn't have to look, I knew who it was. I grabbed my phone, hit the video record button. Before I opened the door, I looked through the peephole and saw the dad and his son at my door. I opened the door, and the following conversation occurred. Dad very angry and yelling, "Where's the truck?" Me as calmly as I could state while coughing, "It was towed. You can call to make arrangements to get it back." Dad, you didn't have the right to tow it. You're going to pay to get it back. Me, I had every right to tow an unauthorized vehicle on my property. I told you not to park on my property, and you did it anyway. It blocked me from getting in my driveway last night. I told you I was going to have it towed after the last time you parked without my permission, and I won't be paying anything to get it back. Dad, you stole my truck, you Fing Beach, and I'm calling the police. I'm going to sue you. Me having enough of this. Go ahead. In the meantime, I'm sick and I'm going back to bed. I closed the door and stood there for a moment. I looked out the peephole, and they were still there. The dad started banging and was also ringing my doorbell nonstop. He knocked and rang my doorbell for another 4 minutes before he gave up. I am still recording all of this, and I didn't turn off the video when he was gone. I turned and saw my kids standing there. The noise had gotten them up, and I just advised that if they were still feeling ill to just go back to bed because that was where I was going. Now, I will honestly say that I didn't think he would call the police, but he did. It was about a half hour before I heard the doorbell ring. I got up and looked through the peephole, and a police officer was there. I opened the door and had the following conversation. Police officer: "Good morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother you, but we had a report from your neighbor. He is stating that you stole his son's truck by having it towed from the street, and we need to talk to you about this issue." Me: "Good morning, officer. My neighbor is only telling you half the story. I had his truck towed this morning from my driveway. When I returned home from the ER, I couldn't get into my driveway, and I have already told him twice that he and his family can't park on my property. This issue started last week, and I have emails to my house owners association, pictures of his truck parked in my driveway this morning, and a video of my neighbor's visit this morning where he called me names and told me he was Going to sue me and call the police? I can show you a few of like police officer. Yes. So you were saying that the truck in question was on your property without your permission, and that you had it towed me? Yes. Last Tuesday he asked if I would allow his son to park in my driveway. I told him no, and he got mad at me and flipped me off before leaving. Then Friday evening when I was leaving I discovered his son had parked in my driveway and I couldn't leave my garage. I went over and demanded they remove the vehicle, and I told them at that time that I would have the truck towed if they parked on my property again. I came home late this morning and the truck was in my driveway, so I had it towed. Police officer, I just want to confirm you were saying that it wasn't parked on the street but in your driveway, and you have proof of this? Me, yes sir. If you will give me a minute I will print off the emails that I sent to the House Owners Association that document the issues, and I will also show you the picture and video as well. After I had told him this, the police officer said that he would wait for me to print everything off. Once I got the emails printed, I then returned to the door, opened my photos app to the officer to show the truck in my driveway, time-stamped, handed my phone, and printed emails to him. After looking at the photo where you could clearly see my house in the background, the truck blocking the entrance, and that it was partially on the lawn, the officer then read the printouts. He handed my phone back to me and asked me to open the video that I had referenced. While he went over to the lawn to look, I watched him look at the area and then take a few photos. I could see my neighbor and his whole family standing in their driveway watching me and the police officer returned, and I handed him back my phone with the video ready, and he watched it. After he finished watching the video, we had the following exchange. Police officer, I am going to need a copy of that photo and video for my file. If I provided you with an email, would you be able to send it to me? Me, yes sir, no problem. Police officer, I have enough information for my files to determine that the vehicle was not on public property and was in fact on your property. I've made a note that you did not give permission for the vehicle to be parked on the property based on the emails you gave me with dates and time. It appears you did in fact advise your neighbor not to park on your property. Would you like to file a trespassing report for this incident? Me, oh, absolutely. Police officer, I can see you are not feeling well. You can either file with me now, or you can go online, getting business card out, writing on it, and then handing it to me. Here is my business card with my email address that you need to use to send me your photo and video, and the case's number was on the card as well. Do you want to file with me now? Me, honestly, I'm exhausted and would prefer to file online later. Police officer, okay, reference this case number when you email your evidence and file the online report. Also reference my name in the report. One more thing, I saw in the video where the dad stated he was going to sue you for having the truck towed. He can sue you if he wants, and I would advise that you keep all of the evidence you provided me with today along with the case number I just gave you. Give it a few days, and you can request a copy of the report, and you will want to keep that as well. If you decide to file an online report, you will need to keep a copy of that as well. I'm going to go talk to the dad now, and sorry to have bothered you. Me, thank you officer, I'm sorry you had to come out. Police officer, have a good day ma'am, get some rest. With that I closed the door and went back to bed. However, I am so mad that I didn't get any sleep. A few hours ago I sent off my photo, video, and another copy of the House Owners Association emails to the email address the police officer gave me, and then saved all of that information just in case. I also filed a trespassing report online. You see, I thought that was going to be that, but apparently not. A few hours after I did all of this, I got another knock at my door. It was the father this time. However, he did not look as angry as he did earlier, and he opened up with an apology. Long story short, he apologized for parking the truck in my driveway, and he pleaded with me to drop the trespassing charge. Apparently, he already had a criminal record in the past, and this would not bode well in his favor. He said he understood that he had no case for which he could sue me, and that he was more willing to pay to get his truck back himself. He even apologized for calling me poor originally when I said no to him parking his truck in my driveway. He extended his arm in an attempt to get me to shake it, and I looked at it for a second. I ended up giving in and shaking his hand, telling him I forgive him, but that if he pulls it again I will press charges with zero hesitation.